Okay.
There better be
the Wild Wisdom Podcast, where we learn how to heal our hearts, find our voices, and step into our authentic power as the wild women that we were destined to be. I'm your host, Jessica Love. Settle into whichever way you like to listen to the Wild Wisdom Podcast, and let's get started.
Hey gang, welcome back to the Wild Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Love, and today I'm sitting with Anna Neimark, the energetic engineer and a sovereign alchemist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yay.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
And I love that we get to do this in person. So this is our first in-person guest episode. So I'm really excited that we're here and we're in our home. And my Cancer Venus is just like so happy to be chatting. You have a Taurus Venus, right?
I do.
I remember you telling me that because I thought you were a Taurus when I first met you.
Yeah. Taurus Moon and Taurus Venus.
So what are your big three?
Aries Sun, Taurus Moon, Cancer Rising.
Oh, we're so astrologically compatible for this. I'm so glad that we're here. Yay. Gemini Sun, Sag, Moon, Pisces Rising, but my Venus is in Cancer. So there's a lot of you have a lot of transits happening right now also with your moon. Yeah, and your rising. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Honestly, with the eclipses, I felt like I was trudging through Jello and I didn't feel alive until Neptune moved into Aries. And then I was like, oh my God, I can do things again.
Wow. Okay.
I can actually take action on something, anything in my life.
Wow.
Because before that, I was just like, what are we doing? What's happening? Oh, a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah, totally. So what is your Neptune and Aries era going to be like? Because for people who don't know, that's a transit that takes 14 years. So we're going to be here for some time.
I think the era is actually preparing me for stepping into like the fullest expression of my human design. Because in human design, I'm a 6-2 generator. And the 6-2 is the teacher archetype. And from like 0 to 30, you're just experiencing, right? Like you're just doing all the things, trial by error. And then 30 to 50 is when you're refining. And then 50 is when you're supposed to step into the fullest expression of the teacher archetype, the wisdom, all of it.
Yeah.
And right now we're in that 30 to 50 window for me. So I think the Neptune in Aries is going to be a lot of that and really taking action on it as opposed to just dreaming and scheming and wondering and not actually doing. This is going to be the doing.
The doing era. I love it. It's going to be your doing era. I'm a 6-2 also. So, but I'm in the first portion, which is like, I'm coming out of it, you know, but I feel like right around the time I turned 27, I started to feel that more, okay, like I actually have to do things with the ideas I have. Like if I'm going to enter my hermit era, as you know, it's the next one, like what am I actually going to be doing during that time of surrender and isolation and like learning to bring that into the 50. So I love that for you. I love this doing era. Yeah. Before we started recording this podcast, we were talking a lot about the balance between like abundance as a spiritual healer and a guide and also like giving and service and things like that. So how has that been unfolding for you and how does that relate to this era, this doing era?
In so many ways, honestly, I've been full-time business owner, entrepreneur for almost 9 years now. It's going to be 9 years in August. And I've had so many fluctuations between being fully in my masculine energy of like, you have to make cold calls and like reach out to people and do cold outreach and send emails and do all the things, right? To going complete feminine energy. Like, I'm just going to meditate on it and I'm just going to like create and manifest it and magnetize it by like, I don't know, jade egging myself. And
not the Yoni egg. One time I was gifted a Yoni egg. It was somebody passed it down to me and they got it passed down to them.
I'm sorry, passed it down to
I did not use it.
Yeah.
I gave it away.
Good on you for that. That is the correct choice.
I didn't know what a Yoni egg was yet.
Yeah.
I'm interrupting you, but I have to tell the stories. I didn't know what a Yoni egg was yet. And my friend, she gave me a lot of the things that are literally in my house right now because she was moving to Mexico. But I asked her, oh my gosh, I've never seen a crystal this shape before. And she said, oh, it's a Yoni egg. And I did some research later.
And you're like,
I'm like, girl, so this was like up in your Yoni and you wanted me to have this? Like, as a gift? I'm a little confused, but anyway. So you were Yoni egging it.
I wasn't actually literally Yoni egging it, but I'm just painting the picture of that sort of feminine, like, oh, just meditate and it'll happen. So I've kind of fluctuated between those two extremes. And the reality of it is you need both. You need both that feminine intuition and the surrender and the receiving, but you also need the masculine action and you need the structure and you need the doing.
Yeah.
And it took me actually an embarrassingly long time to figure that out. I'm going to tell one on myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't until really the last few years that I stopped listening to the advice of all of the online business coaches who tell you that you need the funnel or you need the high ticket this or the, masterclass that and the launch sequence this and all the things. There's so much out in the space right now, especially being an online business. And at the end of the day, everybody's trying to sell you their method and their thing as the end all be all. It's almost like in diet culture. It's like everybody's trying to sell you the diet where it's like, that thing worked for the creator of that diet, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for your specific body type and your specific like energetic makeup. And
when you were speaking, I thought about this critique of wellness culture and health culture from this person named Nikki. I can't remember their last name. Something they said was with wellness culture, there's always this goalpost. And so every time, like now, first you have to get skinny. So now you get skinny, you have the Pilates body, but now you need a bigger butt. So now you have to get the bigger butt, but now you need like lymphatic drainage. So now he was talking about how it's like, now you gotta go drain your lymphs or whatever, because he didn't really know what it was. So you gotta go do this thing. And then you need to get this green juice and
then now you need to do the liver cleanse and the celery juice.
Yes. Yeah. Where it's like somewhere one took something that is so nuanced, like business, wellness, health. And I don't know if it's really anybody's fault, because I think that's what we're told by the other marketing coaches and the other business coaches. It's almost like a pyramid scheme, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere one said, in order to grow a following or in order to have impact, you have to teach this one specific method. And so we go out there and then we all start teaching them in different ways, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Because the funnel does work for someone.
Right.
But it doesn't work for everybody. And we all have these different ways on we all have these different like secret sauces.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's marrying your own individual secret sauce and your intuitive genius with the strategy, but also finding the strategy that works for you.
Yeah. What's the craziest business advice that you've gotten, or what was like a business practice you used to do? I know you mentioned cold calling, which is probably more like texting and DMing, but what has been like the craziest advice you've seen, or just the advice that you've seen that you really don't resonate with anymore?
Most of it.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So everything from like the very first business coach I had never run a business except for his own business.
Red flag.
Right. So most of the advice was still based on a very masculine energy, like sales type of structure.
Yeah.
Where it is like literal cold calls, not even DMs.
My first, it was a partner of mine, but my first business consultant was a salesperson, and I literally had like a script.
Yeah. And when I started out with a fashion styling business, and I was like reaching out to people and like going to networking events and having like these scripts essentially, right? And it's like, how many calls are you making today? when I would have like
Wow.
co-working sessions with that coach, it would be like, okay, how many calls are you going to make today? How many people are you following up with? So it was treated as this numbers game in a very like masculine based sales type of scenario, right? And then on the flip side, the hyper feminine coaches who are like, just, you know, masturbate your way to $1 million.
Is anybody actually laying in their bed, like in their underwear, taking their coaching calls? Or
well, it wasn't complete random cold calling, but it was more like, okay, who do you know? And how many of the people you know are you going to make phone calls to either like pitch them or ask them for a referral?
How did that impact your relationships?
Honestly, it was a lot of the same sort of stuff I had to do when I was in a personal development like coaching program, where their model was where you're just making phone calls and you're like, sorry, you gonna lay down?
He's like really obsessed with you.
Yeah.
Lay down. Anyway, okay, so I know what you're talking about. I went in one, I don't know if they're the same ones, we can share names later, but it was essentially that you had to enroll people in it in order to continue. So I dropped out because it was giving cold, but
yeah, it has those aspects. But that was my first sales training. So what I knew of sales is that you do that, is you reach out to all of the people in your life and you talk to them about what they're up to, but then you're like, and this is what I'm up to, buy my thing or send me someone.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful. And with some people, it actually did work, right? Because some people actually did need my services. But with other people, it's like, okay, why are you bothering me? And it's like, is this a genuine catch-up call? Are you genuinely wondering how I'm doing? Or are you just trying to sell me something?
Yeah.
Then it gets into that territory of like the MLM DMs, right? Where it's like, hey, girl.
Yes, I know. You know what? I have a client and friend and slash cousin that is in an MLM, and she does it very masterfully and does not do that. So I think it's like that really opened up my horizons, because I literally thought that everybody was like that because of the amount of DMs I got. But she obviously also got those DMs, so she did it in a completely different way that I think was really masterful. But it's so tough because you start to question, like, can I actually connect with this person? And I went through something similar too, where it was like going out and DMing people. I'm also a projector, so it's really not projector-like to send DMs. And but I did that
for a generator either.
I guess you're right.
Supposed to respond.
Responding. Yeah. So everybody's kind of responding pretty much, except for what, like manifestors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate with that. It's like, did you feel too when you were doing that, like something just didn't felt right? Something feel right for you?
I just had a lot of resistance to it.
Yeah. I feel like that's tough. I had a similar experience with ChatGPT, and like, this is not the podcast topic of today, but somehow very controversial topic. I didn't realize that.
And all of the environmental implications, because
yes. Yeah. So I recently woke into that, and I when I started using it, I felt this like weird vibe, but literally people were telling me in my environment, like, you just got to get with like the new age, and like, this is how things are. And just funny because I'm not like super analog either. Like we're recording a podcast with my iPhone right now. So I wasn't sure what they meant by that, but essentially I guess this was the new,
it's the new thing,
the new online, the new MySpace or whatever. So I was like, okay, I guess I need to just get on this. And something in my gut kept saying like, no. But I gaslit myself because I figured it must be a limiting belief. And then boom, like a week later, I start hearing about the environmental impact and things like that. And so you've been doing this for 9 years. When did you start shifting into this more balanced state of this masculine and feminine? And how has that supported your business? And I'm also curious for you, what does abundance, because we hear that a lot on social media, like what does that actually mean to you?
A great question. Honestly, I think I've just been shifting into the balance between the masculine structure and the feminine flow fairly recently. And I think what it actually took to do that is getting a part-time job. And nobody talks about this because in the spiritual circles, there's a lot of rhetoric around, well, you have to be all in on your business. And if you take a part-time job, you're giving up on your business. And for the last 2 years, I've actually gaslit myself into believing that I'm somehow giving up on my sole purpose work if I took some part-time job. When in fact, I had been stifling my business with the energy of desperation, with the energy of, oh my God, I need this next client or I can't put gas in the car.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I need this sales call or discovery call to go well, or I won't be able to like buy groceries, or I'll have to rely on pet sitting because I can't rent an apartment, right? Like, then your livelihood is solely dependent on your business.
Right.
And as an entrepreneur, a lot of the time in a service-based capacity, especially in a spiritual service-based capacity, there can be these cycles of feast and famine. It's not always predictable, steady, recurring monthly revenue, right? Yeah. And it's like those months when the income dips and you're like, holy shit, what am I going to do? And you're desperate for clients, and energetically, obviously people can feel that.
Yeah.
And it pushes them away. And legitimately, I got hired, or I knew that I was getting hired for this part-time job just 3 weeks ago. And just the knowing that something was coming, like hadn't received a paycheck yet, but the energy had shifted to, oh, I'm actually creating stability for myself. I'm actually creating structure to where, yes, now I'm going to have to balance being on somebody else's schedule,
right,
at least somewhat, with, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I want because it's my own business.
Right.
But even just knowing that that structure and that stability is incoming took the pressure off my business to where I was like, and my birthday just happened. And I decided to run a big sale, bigger than I would ever usually do. Because usually I would be like, well, I can't discount my services that much because what am I saying with discounting my services that much about the value of my work?
Right. That's a whole nother thing, right? Somehow
Yeah.
making things accessible means that you are cheapening it, which isn't always true.
Yeah.
Maybe occasionally, but.
Right. And then I ran this sale and I had 5 new clients book in for sessions. So
how did it feel giving those sessions too? I'm curious.
It felt really good. It felt like, okay, cool. Like I get to come truly from a space of service where I think if you're in survival for such a long time, you tend to forget that.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're kind of trying to scramble to be in service because you're like, but I'm doing this. This is my sole purpose work. And like, I want to be that space, but also I want to be able to feed myself.
Totally, girl. So I feel as if this is why when people become parents or when people get a part-time job or people get a full-time job or they go back to school, our businesses soar because we're forced to be more mindful of our time. You know, I had that experience when I also got a part-time job at the institute that I was teaching for. Those were the months that I had the most amount of financial success in my business. And there were also the months that I feel like I did the deepest amount of coaching. I feel like my coaching at that time was like fucking deep. Like I felt like I was literally watching the women I was working with, their lives were transforming. And it went from like the first round of this particular program had 2 people and the second one had 5. And I felt like I was really doing meaningful work. And I was also doing retreats and things like this. And like, I felt so free. And I looked back because as when they do their taxes, everybody's favorite time, I always can see like, as you were saying, I have some months where my income was super high and I had other months where like, if I go back, it's like I had months that my income was like $12,000 between my 3 businesses. Then I had months where it was like negative 13, you know? And so if one isn't prepared, get kind of pushed into this energy of I can just fully serve. But in other cultures, like one doesn't even do a spiritual journey until they have what Mami Onami says, like secure household. Or what I think a lot of Eastern cultures would say is like that strong Muladhara chakra, like your foundation, where if you're not like able to sustain yourself.
I sure didn't get that.
Right.
Level.
How can we, yeah, right. I was like doing like past life regression, like renting a room for $200 a month in my dad's house, like that I just manifested after living in somebody's basement.
Yeah.
Like, right. But we don't learn that. It's like, oh, actually, like,
yeah,
the more stable I can get here. And that doesn't mean you won't have debt. And that doesn't mean that like you won't have months where you don't make as much. It just means that like our basic needs are met and we can approach our services without that desperation.
Right. And looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when you are at the base of the pyramid, when you're in survival, your nervous system can't learn, your nervous system can't create, and you're operating at this very bottom basement level of your actual potential.
Yeah.
So for people who have been fed this rhetoric of you have to go all in on your business and you have to quit your job to do your business full time, it's like, yeah, if that's going to thrust you into survival mode, don't do it. Because you're going to be limiting your capacity to create and to serve.
Yeah. What's your biggest advice for somebody who's in that position, who's like a starving artist or who's struggling as an entrepreneur, who doesn't want to completely not try or not do it? What would you recommend for them?
I mean, honestly, part-time job.
Yeah, anything, I think, too.
Well, anything to stabilize the nervous system enough to create that foundation of security and safety upon which you can create your soul purpose work.
I love that. I would add, so my advice to that is being in that position too, is like find something that you can leave at your job. So I worked at a clothing brand for like 7 years on and off, or 5 years on and off. And it was nice because I did a good job when I was there. So pretty much it would always hire me back when I needed to work there. And I worked there until some other opportunity came up, kind of thing. And I remember I would just leave my phone in the locker and I would just be like folding pants and talking to people. And it just being a kind of meditation for me, because even though I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, I realized like, how can I look at each person, each customer I have at this retail store, and each pair of pants that I hold is like a moving meditation, and also an opportunity to practice my skills, because my skills as a healer of talking to people are very connected to customer service.
Yeah.
You know, so that was really powerful for me. And it did end up evolving into these other opportunities where eventually when I got more successful in my yoga business, I got invited back to try on some of their clothes, make content, and get a free outfit. And that was like so cool.
Yeah.
I felt like a little celebrity. I was like, oh yeah, like this is so cool.
Which that's alignment. So a couple of things that I want to speak to with that. First of all, as healers, it's not just what we do in our modalities and in our sessions and with our clients. It's who we be. It's a frequency. We're the lighthouses, right? And everybody gets to heal and transform in our presence. And you can take that out anywhere in the world. You can take that out to a 9 to 5. You can take that out to the grocery store. It's who you be out in the world that actually helps people transform and heal. It's not necessarily the things that you're doing, right? That's gem number 1. Gem number 2. The fact that you were invited to then do the yoga and the content and all of that, that's a form of alignment. Because the cool thing that happened with this part-time job that I just got hired for, the business development manager that I had like my second interview with, she was like, oh, what modalities are you trained in? And I'm like, okay, interesting question to ask for like a professional interview. But I, listed off all my things. And she's like, oh my God, I'm a Reiki master. I've been looking to expand my spiritual development.
Wow.
Let's talk.
Wow.
And we ended up scheduling a discovery call outside of that. And
That's
she's like, oh, I want to hire you to like do some clearing for me. And then she's like, give me all of your what are all your offerings? And I told her about my offering, teaching space holders how to hold sacred space and clear themselves and clear the spaces they work in. And she's like, sign me up. I'm in.
I love that. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. That's so aligned.
Yeah.
So aligned. So you taking that action step of getting the part-time job and securing your foundation took you out of that energy of desperation into this place of abundance. And it also puts you in this position because you also had to be brave to tell her that you did that.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like sometimes healers get stuck in like, I have to hide this part of me to be in this profession. You might not go to your waitressing job and start doing Reiki on everybody you see, but you don't have to hide that. That's what you do. Like as an example, right? It's like the more people you say that to, you know, Eckhart Tolle talks about that in The Power of Now, uses this example of aspiring actors. And he said, you know, one actor is a waiter at this time. And he walks in every day like he's an actor. And he talks to all the tables like he's an actor. And he tells everybody that he's auditioning for roles. One day a director walks in and asks him to come audition and he gets hired, right? It's like that energy of this, you're not forgetting that this is your purpose.
Right.
But you're not over identifying with it to the point where it becomes almost like egotistical and everything else is like below me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you were like that, but I feel like I've been like that in the past.
I've had moments of that.
Moments of it, right? Where you're like, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be bussing this table. And it's like, bitch, you should be bussing that table, but bussing that table is just as spiritual as giving that speech at that event. Yeah. You know, but I love that, like paying attention to like the whispers of alignment. And a through line I'm hearing through this conversation is also being in it for the long haul. What does being a healer for the long haul mean to you?
It's not just a job description. It's life. It's who you be. It's like you are that everywhere in your life. And it is a practice, a daily devotional practice to healing yourself first and foremost, holding space for yourself first and foremost, and then holding the space for others to heal. And not everybody's going to resonate with that.
Yeah.
Right? Like the same way that a psychic isn't just going to go, you know, talk to somebody's dead uncle that they see on the street or that they meet at a party. And if you're doing that, please stop it.
Yeah.
It's weird. So it's like within boundaries, right? And boundaries and discernment.
Yeah.
But if my commitment as a healer is that I am at a certain level of vibration, then in my field, everybody gets to experience that. And then it's my job and my devotional commitment to get myself up to that vibration when I slip.
Yeah.
As opposed to like lowering my vibration when I'm out in the world and it so-called doesn't matter. Like, oh yeah, I could be a raging bitch in traffic. I could be an asshole to somebody who cuts me off in line at the grocery store or whatever, right? Like I can be mean to somebody who's mean to me, or I can be snarky. But then just because I can, because it's widely accepted in society,
right,
I'm actually not being my most sovereign expression of self. My whole thing is like your most sovereign expression, because I'm kind of betraying my own commitment to myself to be at a certain level of consciousness, at a certain vibration.
Wow. I've struggled with this in the sense of like, I've had a couple times where I had to check myself, but it was more like me expressing a boundary and not knowing how to do it with consciousness. Like that's been a huge part of my journey. What I have seen a lot of is like women's empowerment coaches or business coaches or spiritual healers being super cliquey. And that's been tough because I've had experiences in spaces like that. I had to stop and think about how am I going to alchemize the situation? And I'm going to alchemize it by being a different space holder myself. And if one ever did come to me with any type of information, like holding a sacred frame and being trauma informed. But the interesting thing is, I've never taken a trauma informed class to know how to be somewhat trauma informed. I get confused sometimes because this is my judgy part, but I'm like, how could one be so, like, I understand that there's ways where we might accidentally create traumatic experiences. Like, I've learned recently that burning certain smells, like in a yoga studio, could bring up, using scents in a yoga studio can bring up memories. Yeah. I would have never thought about that. So I understand, like, that's more of an accidental trigger. Yeah. But like, knowing how to hold space for somebody, I feel like it should just kind of be a part of our repertoire.
Facilitator training.
Yeah. Or just like human training.
Or human training, right?
I've had, friends who weren't healers held deeper spaces than that, like for that. So I guess the reason why I bring that up though is because I do think that it's interesting, because I wonder if it's like the rise of social media or what, but like people can really curate a certain persona of themselves with social media.
It's the Instagram version of safety.
Yes.
Versus actual like human safety.
Are you really like a safe person to be around? I feel as if there's this equation that we're creating. So the equation to abundance, which is different for everybody, right? For me, abundance is time. Yeah. So like having time to spend with my daughter, having time to spend with my husband. I worked years and years and years not having holidays off because I worked retail and customer service, like not working late into the evenings, where now I don't have to do that. So for me, it's time. So it's almost like to get to this abundant version of ourselves, it's like having a skill that we're working hard at, that we're also, I feel like that gets left out of the business equation. Yeah. Like curating our craft, like working on our craft, learning new skills, practicing.
Working on the like fulfillment part of the business, as opposed to just the strategic behind the scenes, like working on the business.
The sale, exactly. So it's like that, learning a little bit of business, but maybe more so just like how to create structures and price things and hold frames, contracts and stuff. And then energy. How are we showing up?
And self-belief,
conviction, integrity, right? One time, positive story, if I can share, of a friend's facilitator. I won't share her name, but she probably wouldn't mind. This is positive goss. So I went for a walk with my friend who's a Reiki master, and she trains Reiki, other Reiki masters. And I love when people positively surprise you. Her and I are on this walk in La Jolla, and we're talking about like just our experience as healers and wanting to hold safe spaces and all this. A man literally faints and collapses. And I was like, I think we should go like talk to him. And she was like, yeah. So she runs over to him and she literally asks his wife, can I do Reiki on him? And she's like on the phone with 911, and obviously also call 911. But she was like, do whatever you want. And she literally did Reiki on him, and he started to regain consciousness.
Wow.
Crazy. And I looked at her like this. Like, I felt in that moment, the amount I've been around,
it's like,
so many
you're
healers,
the real deal.
But I was like, I'm around a real fucking healer right now. Like, she literally just rose this man up from the dead. Like, there could have been other factors, but she helped. Like, that was, and we stayed until the ambulance came. And I realized, like, wow, like this human has several successful businesses. And I was like, she's really in integrity. And so I guess my question for spiritual entrepreneurs is like, where do you get presented with these opportunities? Or for example, like some people have really opinionated stances on unhoused people. And I understand that we're on our own journeys and stuff like that. But a practice I try to do, I guess, is if I have leftovers, we live in San Diego, there's unhoused people everywhere. Yeah. If I have leftovers and I know I'm not going to eat them or I don't need them, to be an overflow, I give them to somebody. Because I know that 9 times out of 10 outside of that restaurant, I'm going to run into an unhoused person. Right. And so it's like asking yourself, like, where am I only being a healer where it's like profitable, Instagrammable, right? Yeah. Like I don't film those experiences or take pictures outside. Like most people probably wouldn't even know that. But it's like, where can we kind of walk with that same frequency of the healer? Yes. But also still having those boundaries of, it's also okay to charge for your services, but it's also okay to not hold that so tightly to your chest.
Right. And also it's the balance between integrity and conviction in the power and value of your work, and knowing and owning the value of your work to set those boundaries. And that's the piece that I've had to work on the most recently is I know the power of my work. I know I'm in integrity with my work. I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I've had this conversation about people not valuing my work. And the work for me has been being unfuckwithable, being the true definition of what I say I help people create in their lives, like being my own first client and looking at where am I not fully sovereign? Where am I not fully unfuckwithable? And it's like, oh, if I'm still allowing validation or lack thereof from other people determine what I think of the value of my work, then I'm not fully unshakable in that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, getting back to that center and getting back to that conviction. And that it doesn't matter if somebody doesn't think my work is worth whatever, right? Yeah. That's the current.
Sounds like you've been on quite a journey with your business and being in sovereignty with your practice and your gifts. Is there anything else you feel called to share?
The integrity piece is everything, and it's being like your own energetic hygiene, right? It's making sure you are clear and grounded, making sure you are setting your boundaries not as brick walls, but as filters. So you get to say what comes into your space and doesn't. Because a lot of the time, on the flip side, as healers or as empaths, we want to help, but we end up being like sponges, right? And we end up taking on somebody else's problems as our own, or we end up taking false or undue responsibility for people's healing.
Wow. I really resonate with that.
Yeah. So also finding that balance to where it's like, okay, no, I am the lighthouse and people get to transform in my presence. And I have this toolkit to facilitate transformation for somebody. They've got to want it. I'm not going to drag them through it. I can't want it for them more than they do for themselves.
Yeah.
And I also can't fully be responsible for their entire experience and their full transformation.
Gosh, this is like an intense analogy, but I'm thinking about how there's studies that show that people who have like crazy procedures or like crazy surgeries, like they're more likely to survive if they want to. Like there's been studies that have shown that like people who have like a life that they want to get back to are more likely to survive these catastrophic,
interesting,
like heart surgeries and things like that. Well, how can people work with you?
People can work with me one-on-one. So I reconnect people to their most sovereign expression by peeling away all of the energetic blocks to who they are at their core. That includes also being a ghostbuster and clearing out all sorts of entities and beings out of people in their homes. That also includes personal style. And I am teaching a course called Sovereign Energy Foundations that teaches healers, space holders, facilitators how to hold sacred space by grounding their own energy, clearing their own energy, creating those boundaries, and also knowing how to clear every space that they work with and make sure that they're not entangling with their clients or that people in their groups are entangling with each other.
I love that. Well, the work you do is so valuable. I'll make sure to link all your information in the show notes. And thank you for your time today. This is awesome.
Thank you for this conversation.
So good. Oh my God. That was so good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Wild Wisdom podcast. Really enjoyed this podcast. Go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to spread this wisdom to other sisters who might need it.